Tonight, Tauranga Council's mould issue grows, the inside scoop on reality television, and water. Waikato Regional Council discuss water. Kia ora and good evening. Welcome to Central News on TV Central for Wednesday, the 1st of April. I'm Amanda Harper. In today's news, Australia may have beaten us in the cricket, but a Morrinsville dairy farmer has beaten an Australian record of the heaviest pumpkin by 11 kilograms. The Great Pumpkin Carnival was held in Hamilton over the weekend, and Tim Harris's pumpkin weighed in at just over 754 kilograms. Phil Gray from Free FM was on location, and he snapped this video on his phone.
Okay, Tim, here's your pumpkin weight. Are you ready for this? Yeah. So it ends at 0.5. Does it help? Okay, so we've got a new Zealand record of 754.5. That keeps the Australians, and that's the heaviest pumpkin in the Southern Hemisphere right now. One more round of applause for Tim, everybody. New Zealand and Australian record.
Congratulations, Tim. Matamata Piako District Council have announced they are ending the trial along the median strip of the main street in Matamata, and barriers will be removed this evening. Council Chief Executive Officer Don McLeod says the trials generated a lot of debate in the community, and many strongly objected to any change to the road layout. Traffic has increased in the last couple of years, resulting in traffic flow problems and pedestrian safety concerns. McLeod says people clearly thought the problems caused by the trials outweighed any benefits, so Council has listened to the feedback and returned the intersections to their usual layout, just in time for Easter. At this stage, the Council has no further plans to address the traffic flow issues on Broadway. However, they are open to suggestions and encourage residents to offer suggestions by making a submission to the draft long-term plan. Project Clean manager Terry Wynyard has admitted the overall picture surrounding the Tauranga City Council's mould issue is taking a while to emerge. Terry says answers to the mould-ridden leaking building problem might take a while to surface into the public domain. Terry was once the City Council Environmental Services Manager, the department responsible for food licences, building consents and environmental engineering. He is now coordinating the Council's response to the leaks and Saatchi Botry's mould, which has emptied City Hall of most of its employees. Prendos Consultants are handing over the first of the reports today. Terry says they have completed the technical part of the report, but they haven't quite completed the quantities and the costings for the work that they are recommending. Local government has a lot of processes to work through, including procurement, which can be quite time-consuming. Tauranga City councillors are already setting money aside for a situation now expected to cost millions more than the $1.3 million it has cost so far. Two Te Reo Māori land and water-based science resources have been launched this week at a special event hosted by Māori Language Secondary School, Te Wharekura o Moao. The science resources, developed by the House of Science, are part of a wider pilot project facilitated through Priority One's InStep program, with funding from the New Zealand Lottery Grants Board to engage with Māori secondary school students. The purpose of the InStep program is to harness the energy and expertise from local business to inspire students to make informed career choices. Under the guidance of InStep Steering Group Māori Business Representative Anaru Temutimu, the InStep engagement with Māori plan was developed. This has led to the development of Māori-led project Ngā Tikanga o Te Wai me Te Whenua, with guidance from local iwi through Te Wharekura o Moao, a Māori medium school established by the three Tauranga Moana iwi and based in Bethlehem, Tauranga. The goal of the Ngā Tikanga o Te Wai me Te Whenua project is for rangatahi, youth, to understand their potential and the application behind the science using land, water and cultural context. As well as the two science resource kits, students undertake field trips to see firsthand the potential of science in the context of business and associated career opportunities. Lynn Parlane, InStep manager, says the students are at the centre of this project. The involvement of 38 Year 11 Te Wharekura o Mauao students and their teachers, Whaia Bernie Ahomiro Robinson and Matua Hayden Huriwai, has been a very important element in ensuring successful outcomes. And now for our region's weather. Hamilton, it'll be mainly fine with evening cloud, light winds, high of 23 and low of 10. Rest of the Waikato will be the same. Pairo at 23, 11. Matamata 21 high, 11 low. Te Aomotu 23 high and a 10 low. Tokoroa 20 high and 10 low. And in the Bay of Plenty, Tauranga fine or becoming fine with light winds, high of 22 and low of 14. Te Puke, isolated morning showers, then will be mainly fine, light winds, your high is 20 and overnight low of 13. And for the marine forecast, West Coast Raglan developing late Thursday, westerly 15 knots, moderate southwest swell. High tide is at 10:17 p.m. And on the east coast, Bay of Plenty developing late Thursday, westerly 15 knots, becoming late Friday, variable 10 knots. High tide is at 7:07. Coming up in the show, the scoop on reality TV from Jessie O'Brien. Welcome back to Central News. Reality TV is a hot topic in New Zealand, with the X Factor controversy over the judges and The Bachelor NZ hitting our screens. Rachel chatted to former Amazing Race contestant Jessie O'Brien and got his views on the reality TV trend and what's next on the cards.
Well, I've always loved watching reality TV, you know, been a big Survivor fan. I used to watch that lots and all the singing shows and stuff like that. But I guess initially, back in the New Zealand Idol days, it was because my mum and my sister would not let up. They wouldn't leave me alone. They're like, you have to apply. And all my friends were like, why don't you got to try out. You sing all the time. You're a loudmouth. And so I guess I kind of stumbled into it. I thought, okay, give that a go. And sure enough, now I've been on a couple of shows.
Now, the whole controversy with the X Factor judges, Natalia Kills and Willie Moon, what is your views on their behaviour?
I mean, I think for a start, I think their behaviour was appalling and was nothing more than bullying, really, and something had to be done. I'm really pleased at the way that it went. I'm glad that the producers had the guts to stand up and do something about it. However, the producers probably should have been more responsible to start off with. I think that reality TV is a whole different beast these days. When I was on Idol back in the day, there was no social media, so you didn't get that same kind of like, you know, argy-bargy keyboard warriors, everyone wanting to say their piece. Thankfully, in this situation, the piece was said by the public. I had my voice in there too. I'm like, go do something about it. And sure enough, they got the boot, thank goodness. And you know, now we've got Shelton Woolright in there, good Kiwi muser, he's great. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Now, you've been on New Zealand Idol. How vulnerable were you to the judges' comments?
Yeah, you got to remember, it's a real pressure situation. It's crazy. Like, you might be the most confident person in the world, but all of a sudden, you're standing by yourself in the middle of the stage, like you've just sung. You've done whatever it was you've done on stage. You've maybe danced when you probably shouldn't, or whatever. We see it all the time, don't we? But you're completely bare. So you feel very vulnerable. You feel very exposed, and it's pretty harsh. And even nice comments, you're kind of like, oh yeah, and waiting for the old left-right combo or something. So it's pretty hard, and I have mad respect for anyone that gets on any stage anywhere in front of people, especially when they open themselves up willingly to judgment of any sort.
From a musician's point of view, do you think reality TV does give you a good opportunity?
I think it definitely can lead to other opportunities. As a musician, nearly 10 years later from my time on New Zealand Idol, I still get gigs because I was on New Zealand Idol, or recognition because, hey, you were on New Zealand Idol. That's not the majority of my gigs, it's just some of them. But it always does this, it splits a lot of musos who think they're purists, which is a load of rubbish, they're really not purists. They're like, oh, you know, there's no real talent, and then you have people on the other side going, it's the only way. It's just not. Look, people carve their own path. I had an incredible experience. I'm thankful for the profile that I got from that, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
Now, The Amazing Race, can you tell us what was your experience like on the show?
Oh man, The Amazing Race was, to sound a little cheesy, amazing. It was unbelievable. Went to places I would never have dreamed of going to, did things that I would never have dreamed of doing, and some of them I would never do again, such as eating tarantulas. I don't suggest it, don't do it, don't go near them. They're disgusting. But just unbelievable, overwhelming, like just such a privilege to be part of something that cool.
That was former The Amazing Race contestant Jessie O'Brien. Rachel will keep you posted on Jessie's next adventure. In our next story, over the next 10 years, major changes will impact our lifestyle in the Waikato region. Our natural resources will be under more pressure, in particular our rivers and streams. Paula and Vaughan from the Waikato Regional Council explain how the LTP hopes to address these issues and minimise the impact on our water supply further down the track.
And in fact, water is the number one concern to our community still after a number of years. We have been working in the water quality space for quite a long time. In the past, we've been looking at point source discharges. Those are the sort of direct discharges from factories, from stormwater, where you can actually see where the pollution comes from. And we've done a great deal over the last number of years to stop that. So very little of that is occurring, or none should be. We've also had catchment committees in place for a very long time, working on things like soil control, erosion work, stream planting, and other biodiversity aspects of looking after local streams. That work will continue. We even had, for example, the Clean Streams Accord for a long time, where people could get subsidies to plant or fence their stream. So in fact, we have been dealing with water quality for a long time, but now we're going forward with a new collaborative approach with the community, looking at how we partner up to better focus on waterways.
Yeah, and just to reinforce the point from Paula, that over the last 50 years there's been a whole heap of work around cleaning up point source discharges. When my father-in-law moved to Hamilton about 50 years ago, he would say to me, you could visibly see lots of pollution from point source discharges. People wouldn't swim in the river like they do today. So I think we should acknowledge all the effort that's gone on to date. But moving forward, yeah, we have a different regime. We've got a treaty settlement, or treaty settlements over the Waikato and Waipa rivers that provides us with a good framework in terms of decision making that meets iwi aspirations. We've also set up a process to make sure that other key stakeholders are involved in setting water quality limits and targets, and obviously the Waikato River Authority being a key partner in improving water quality as well. So out of all that will come two main actions. One is around our policy framework, our regulations to set water quality limits and targets, and so when proposals come up that will impact on water quality in future, they'll have to show how they are meeting those new limits for water quality. The second action, as Paula said, is work on the ground. We have our catchment plans where we prioritise where we're going to get best bang for the buck in terms of water quality, biodiversity and soil conservation, and that prioritisation work in catchments will help inform our funding on the ground, working with landowners, farmers and other partners like Dairy NZ and the River Authority and our River iwi.
So one really good example of that is the Waiora Healthy Rivers Project, which is a co-governance project, so it involves our River iwi. It also involves all of those agricultural stakeholders that need to manage their effects into water, and the local communities. And recently we were really happy to launch the Waipa Catchment Plan project, and we've managed to secure joint funding around that and got all of the knowledgeable people in the same room talking about the same focus on that catchment. So those are the kinds of projects that we're doing now.
And it just reinforces the first point that Paula made, that a central theme in our long-term plan is around partnerships. We know that water quality isn't, or poor water quality isn't caused by any action of the regional council. It's people on the ground doing things, and so only by working with those same people we will produce sustainable solutions to water quality.
We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back to Central News. I've got Paula Southgate and Vaughan Payne from the Waikato Regional Council in, and they're carrying on their talk about water quality. Now, what about what's going on in the Hauraki?
Well, the Hauraki, there is a lot of work going on through the catchment committees, the integrated catchment committees, which are focused on managing the Waiho and Piako in terms of sediment, erosion, biodiversity and the like. So that work will continue. But in respect to a more focused approach, once the Hauraki treaty settlement is in place, we're hoping we'll be able to implement a program very similar to what we've just done with the Waipa catchment, an integrated approach.
And just like all our rivers in the region, there has been a lot of improvements in cleaning up water quality in the Waiho and Piako rivers over the years. So our local councils, our local industries have cleaned up a lot of their point source discharges into those rivers, and so our focus is around making actions and changes on the ground. A lot of catchment works, as Paula's talked about, that are going on in the Waikato and Waipa rivers are also going on in this catchment. So there are community groups working in the upper Kaimai ranges as a collaborative process to help improve water quality that flows all the way down into the Firth of Thames. And we're also doing a lot of collaborative planning with the Auckland Council, who see a lot of the catchment activities going on in the Hauraki Plains, impacts on the Firth of Thames, impacts on the whole Coromandel area. So I think a lot of work, but it will increase as the treaty settlements come to pass.
It must be quite challenging to have successful collaborative relationships with so many different, organisations in iwi. Have there been any obstacles in relation to what's going on in the Hauraki?
Well, I think the key difference with a collaborative approach is that it does take considerable time and resourcing. You do have to be in the same room, you do have to have the same knowledge base. So it's not as quick as if we just came and created some rules and said, there are your rules, work within those. We do need to have lots of conversations so everybody understands what's going on with the waterways. The second issue is funding, is having sufficient resources to do things in the timescale that you want. So we're continuing to have conversations with central government around what the resourcing might look like post-Hauraki settlement, so that we all have sufficient resources to do the kind of work that, as I said, we're doing with the Waikato Waipa catchment. And because we certainly do think that the Waiho Piako catchment is a significant and very important catchment for our region.
Yeah, and just to reinforce, we want solutions that are long-term, not imposing solutions on people. So only by working with landowners and other agencies will we end up with people buying into the solutions and therefore more sustainable solutions.
Are landowners receptive to the ideas that the Waikato Regional Council present?
I think it depends. Depends how radical those ideas are, and that's why you need a collaborative process, so that often the ideas are coming from the landowners as opposed to coming from council. So.
I think the key point is that everybody does want the same outcome. They want to be able to protect the water quality and get on with business. So, at least you're starting from the same base, and there will be some change in the way we do business going forward, but I think if we all buy into it, it's going to be easier.
The LTP is still up for consultation. Everyone in the Waikato is affected by these changes. Head to their website to submit your feedback. In our last story, Hamilton City will be the backdrop to a low-budget action short film being produced independently by California's Metalloid Films. It is an action-packed cinematic narrative film that will be approximately 10 minutes in length. Reporter Rachel Sutton spoke to producer and director about Hacktivist.
Well, I all started with making my own films back when I was like 12, and been working on my own projects ever since, trying to get better and a bit more experience, my own productions, but also helping out on professional shorts and TV series, and doing jobs assisting, and trying to get some experience in the film industry back in the States. And when I moved here, I decided to get back into making my own projects again.
Have you always been creative?
Yeah, I guess I've always been writing stories and making, content, I guess you could say, and just kind of, yeah, my parents were really supportive when I was a kid, and my mom had been a professional photographer, so she's had a lot to teach me about photography and film and that kind of thing.
The film originally started as a 30-page script in the USA. How did that all come about?
Well, I had this idea for a hacker movie, and I ended up writing this big 30-minute script that encompassed a lot of things that were going on in the world, like current events to do with what's happening right now, and the whole hacking aspect and the whole hacktivist aspect was a part of it. And when I brought it into my film class to show my colleagues and fellow students and the teachers, they I just took kind of what they thought were the best parts from that, and when I moved here, ended up rewriting it to take place in New Zealand, and used kind of like the best bits out of that 30-page script to make Hacktivists.
What is the process of actually writing a script?
Yes, I do actually. I basically just write out the whole story with no format or anything first, and just get it all down on paper out of my head, and then from there I talk to people about it. I really like a collaborative script writing process and getting people's opinions, and then just taking from that like what I want and adding to it what I think would be good, and then getting it all formatted and right. And then I do a couple, I've had about 11 rewrites of the script throughout Hacktivists, throughout the pre and post-production, or pre-production through to production and all that. About 11 rewrites of the script.
Where did the concept of the film come from?
Well, the concept all came about one day when I was reading the news and watching these YouTube videos about stuff that's going on back in like 2011, when there were all these, the whole recession crisis was happening, the whole economic thing was going on, and there were people, hacktivists, you could say, and activists standing up to the wealthy elite, saying, we're the people, and this is what needs to happen, kind of thing, and standing up for their rights and social justice and that. I thought that was really cool and would make a really good film. And at the same time, while I was reading these articles and stuff, I was listening to a lot of like electronic dance music and like dubstep, drum and bass specifically. And I just thought, oh man, I just totally pictured this idea in my head. I was like, this has to be a movie, just like hackers being hunted down by a corporation who's trying to get their files back, kind of thing. It just came to me.
Wow, that sounds exciting. Thank you for watching Central News tonight. We do post everything online on our website, tvcentral.co.nz. Also on our Facebook, we like to keep everyone updated, so don't forget to like us. Or if you think you might have a story lead for us, email news@tvcentral.co.nz. I will be back on screens tomorrow night with more stories from the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. My name is Amanda Harper. Have a good night. Ko Marie.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.